All right, we are back. Night 3 in a row. LMG. Got the weekend ahead of us here. We've been working hard on this thing all week. We've got some mad progress made. We got all of our sail panels fixed up this week. We didn't do any filming. We just did a lot of working. We're going to film some more this weekend, though. We got a lot of projects that are come to a head, and it's going to be a good weekend. We're super excited about it. Check out our hood. We got it all finished up, too. We got our hood pins in. Bought our little scuff plates from PPM. We really like those. They're nice. Everything lined up good. We also got some new hood pins from them as well. We're getting everything all finalized. We did get all of our bolts and our hardware put in and our floppers. Got everything all pinned up. Everything's looking real nice. Only real body work left is we have to finish trimming out what our fenders are, and we've got to do a little bit more trimming for our wheel wells. Rule book says we need 2 inches of clearance through here, so we're gonna have to cut out a little bit more. Shouldn't be too much of a project though. And then body bracing, and then we've got to do the trim pieces on the bottom. We've got this one mocked in. We're going back with blue. We're basically sticking with our same color scheme as our old car. Vinyl's on order, should be done next week, so we're gonna have letters. Our first race is supposed to be a week from tomorrow, so it'll be Saturday the 3rd. We are going to hope Mother Nature's nice to us and let us race. Before we wrap it up here, we're gonna go out here and check out what Drew's doing outside. He's doing a little work on the trailer. His attitude has been a little sour today because I'm a little late getting over here. You get them pinned in there? Let's check out our new job box. It's going on the trailer. And all sorts of nice storage. It's gonna round everything out. We've talked about putting a tire rack or a permanent box on this trailer, but we also use it for a lot of He's so noisy today. We also use that trailer for a lot of other stuff other than racing. So putting other permanent additions on there isn't as ideal. So we're gonna get the fenders trimmed out. We're gonna get the body flare supports put on, all this rest of the spring steel put in. Hopefully get the rest of the trim put on and the fenders cut up. We're gonna call this body a wrap. You guys stick around. Appreciate all your all support. We're super excited about having Mastersbilt come down and help us out next week and get us lined out before our first race. So big thanks to those guys and the team over at raceknowhow.com. They've been pretty awesome in supporting us and helping us get rolling for the year. So hang Tim, we're gonna get it done. We're gonna work hard tonight, Saturday, Sunday, try to make some YouTube videos. We're gonna try to get this thing started. It's gonna be a long weekend. Hope you guys hang around and enjoy.
Getting ready for Tater. Got the scales out, some weight on there, trying to put the shock pressure under there. We got to take the weight off of it first so he can jack it up to get to it. We don't remember what the pressure is, but we're very nervous, excited. You ready to go up on the lift?
Yeah, sure.
Watch your hands.
Go for it. I did all right. Pick that thing up.
Pick it up.
Pick it up.
Let there be lift. May have to put this battery on charge real quick. She'll do for what we need to do. Alright, we'll check back in here in a little bit. Getting ready though. Had to work on old Blue out there. Blue brake line, not good. We got it fixed though.
I'm working on a list to get prepared to go to the race on Saturday. And my problem is, being new to the late model business, is I'm not for sure which piece do I start. There needs to be, in my opinion, there should be some sort of order of operation going on here. And so things that we like to check and verify on our car are things like ride height, scale weights, our 4-bar lengths, our caster camber and toe, our rear end center, our pinion angle, and which is also our lift arm angle, because those are kind of hand in hand, and then what our J-bar height is set at. Is there anything from someone with your level of experience that you might also recommend to add to this list for something that you would want to have checked or verified before you take a car to the track for the first time?
Well, there is a checklist that we use at home when we race national.
Okay.
That's further in depth than that, but I would say that racing weekly on Saturday night, say we only get in 50 or 75 laps, that's a little extensive. You pretty much covered a lot of what you look at right there.
Okay.
But the main thing is when you go out there and race on a weekend. Say you had a good weekend and you didn't rub no wheels or no encounters like that. If you rub some wheels, the first thing you need to do is start looking at the front suspension.
Okay.
And the way we do it, and it's not really expensive. You can find something. We got some plates that goes on the front hubs, and we got setup sticks, so you can actually elevate the car and set your center like you're 18 and 16, just saying on the front. You could even do it with a piece of aluminum flat. Drill your 2 holes, get the length you need. Okay. You can put your car in the air and put them plates on there, and you can check your toe every week. Now you got to make sure you get you got to have a standard measurement from the frame rail to your rotor. Okay. So you can always duplicate it. We do it on both sides because you don't know which side you might get hit on.
Gotcha.
And we call it a quick reference method.
Okay.
And we even use it at the racetrack and even when we build a new car, which we got tie rod links to what we do when we do a new car, so you can see where you need to be. Some of the older stuff we're not as good on. The newer stuff, to keep up with the times, you got to do a setup sheet or some kind of reference where you know what it is. Now it might vary a 16th or an 8th when you start checking your toe, right, or whatever, because of weld movement or something like that, but that's what you got to do this day and age, is keep up with it. But anyway, back to what we was talking about. If you don't rub a wheel, or you do rub a wheel, and you put them there aluminum plates on there, now you can't set your car down on the ground. It's got to be on your lift. Right. And you can check your toe in. So say if you did rub a wheel, you put them plates on there and check it, and they're in the same spot, you're wasting your time checking it. Right. But if you do bend a ball joint or lower or anything's out of, something's bent. Well, if you got hit on the right front, that's where you go to. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not an expensive way to do it. You can buy the expensive setup sticks that you can roll your car around on. Now, when I went to the racetrack, and this has been years ago, I just used a piece of 1-inch aluminum flat, drilled 2 holes, and that was my center. Right. I got my center right that way. And I could check my toe on the pits without the toe plates. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Regardless, it's hard to be consistent with them things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just an example of some of the stuff that we did that's like I say, inexpensive. You can about find them their plates anywhere. Dave Hammond makes some. I don't know how expensive all of them are. He usually gets the 4 deal, but his bolts on there, and you can do the same thing with maybe 2 or whatever. Okay. Or you guys are resourceful. There are so many resourceful racers that they can get stuff made anymore without having to buy it all. Right. And sometimes you can just go look at what they've made and say, man, that is a good idea. I mean, just like today when I was looking at the front of your car, the radiator mounts, the racers are very resourceful anymore. But the list that you compiled right there, something else that we check that this is during the week, we check our axles a lot to make sure that there's no twist in them. Checking the axle for axle twist.
Okay.
All right. That's a good idea.
But usually from week to week, after we wash our hind joints, like I say, we check and see where their toes in or out with the setup plates. Shocks and springs are a big thing. Everybody pretty much takes them off every week now. You need to keep them clean for what they cost. The shocks anymore, I don't care if they're a twin tube non-adjustable, a canister shock for what they cost. This day and age, you got to keep them shocks and springs clean.
Yep.
And especially a lot of them's got the bearings in them, so with you turn them, they got the platform bearing that goes on top of the springs. Them need to be cleaned and lubed, so it makes it easier to manipulate your spring load.
Right.
But like I say, the hind joints, shocks and springs, your toe alignment, and frames, looking over them to make sure there's no cracks or no structure damage in them. Because these cars, just like you guys, has got an older car, you got to keep your eyes on it to make sure that it stays in good shape.
Yeah, yeah. We've been over every inch of it now, so everything's looking good. And so, if we wanted to pick a place to start, would you think that checking and making sure your ride height is correct on the car is a first place to start? Is that something that was that where you would start with the car?
Yeah, but when you check your ride height though, you gotta make sure that you got your fuel level that you start with and
Right.
the weight of your driver in it.
Right, yeah, we'll make sure we got plenty of the
Yeah.
right amount of
We
fuel
got
weight.
simulated
in the
weight,
back,
and we got Harlan
weight in
will
the
come and
driver's
sit in
seat
there.
to simulate that.
It makes a big difference if you got, you know what I mean, back in the old days, they wanted to check a ride height, and I can tell you Brian Burkhofer did his cars without the driver, because he was always doing it, so it made
Right.
it easy. But there's so many different variables in drivers anymore.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's easier just to do it off the ride
It
height.
changes almost a half an inch
Yep.
on our car without a driver to with a driver. So we measured everything up. So I think that that is probably where we would start. Now, if all the ride heights look good, that's always a question for me is, other than calling the manufacturer directly, and luckily you're here and you are the manufacturer of our cars. So is there any, ride heights are different from car to car, right? I mean, that's an assumption that I'm making? Maybe that's not simply true as far as like, let's say a Rocket versus a Longhorn versus a Mastersbilt. So there's not a standard number here.
There's not a standard number for any of them. You know what I mean? You back gotta know what car you have or what car that they have to be able to do that.
Okay.
Because I know that some of the frames are built different. Some of them just like some of our cars over the years has evolved. Some of them went from 3 inches to 4 inches because of frame rail movement.
Right, gotcha. So that's one thing we did. We moved our right front shock mount. It's a half an inch further up and a half an inch further back. So we're interested to see, does our ride height need to stay consistent even though we made that shock mount change on the right front?
Well, when you move that shock mount, that means you're going to have to turn that nut down a half an inch to maintain the same ride height.
Keep the eye to eye basically the same, which will make the ride height the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that we're pretty close on. We did put a couple turns in ours to see where we're at. So I would like to, we've been using, this looks familiar at all. We've obtained some copies from what was original Mastersbilt setup book.
Yeah, that could be as far as back as 2000, 2001.
It could be pretty far back.
Yeah.
So if we had to shoot from the hip here for our ride heights, what would you say? Because there are a lot of other Mastersbilt guys out there, just like me and Drew.
If it's a SmackDown car, you're going to be pretty spot on right there.
Okay, so if you're running a SmackDown, then you're pretty good right here with this. Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
Guys, a lot of it's not been ride height. It's been ground clearance and shock and spring configuration.
Okay.
There's a couple different ways to do that on the left rear. Like you got static load and droop load. If you got high static load, that means your ride height most of the time might be higher. If you got a low static load, that means it's going to be lower. So it changes your ride height a little bit.
Right.
But when we run conventional cars, like you guys run here, you guys just run a more or less a limited shock and spring class.
Yes.
So it kind of dictates what you do it a lot of times.
Right.
Now we could put an 18-inch spring on our 20-inch spring, whatever length, real soft, and it's going to set down. It's going to make your left rear ride height lower and your ride height higher on the right front. You know what I mean? That's just because it goes crisscross.
Right.
If your left rear comes down, the right front's coming up.
Okay.
So it goes crisscross like that. But that's got a lot to do with the spring configuration. I don't know we can manipulate, and I probably can, but I'm not kept up with a lot of the shocks on the 602 car. If it's a spec shock, I don't know if they make one that's got enough rebound. A lot of times you run at low ride height, and some of them they won't let you run a front shock, so it don't have enough compression to keep it at attitude.
Keep it at attitude.
I mean, a lot of what changes the dynamics of these cars is shocks and springs, what you do to them.
Okay.
Just think about it, guys. If you build a right front shock that will completely lock down when you get to motion, the right front of that car is going to stay down.
Right.
Just another one. Take all the rebound out of it. Say you got a hole in it. Well, just as soon as you go in there, the car's going to do this and come back. That shock has got to help that car control that car to stay at attitude.
Right.
Unless you're running a perfect circle, might be easier. But anything that's got a longer straightaway where you're backing gas up, it makes it harder to stay at attitude.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to get out. I don't want to get out of control on what we're talking about.
Right.
I want to talk about what you guys' questions. Is.
Sure. So we have been working. We are not limited in our class to a set spec shock like a lot of there's a fast track spec shock I think out there for some crate races. We are just limited to maybe the type of shock, and we can run the adjustable shock. We choose not to because it's not within our price point, but we have had our shocks put on dynos, and they have been put together by a couple professional shock guys. I've actually had them verified by Kenny Spencer, KSE Shocks,
Yep, that
up
was
there in
one of them.
Ohio. And I bought the shocks from down south in Alabama, and he put them on the dyno and was like, "Don't change a thing." So you're the first guy in 16 years that showed up and said, "I use shocks," and I'm letting you walk out of here and say, "Don't change a thing." So I feel like what we've got, I've asked 2 different professional shock guys to be like, if I wanted to buy Integras or Penske's right now, how much am I really gaining with my current setup that I have? And their answer is, unless you've got thousands of dollars, you just want to just put into it. The heart and soul of what the shock is doing is where it needs to be for us. So we can't make any changes on our shocks on the fly. They are what they are. We have a gas shock on the right front and a gas shock in the left, and we can adjust that pressure down a little bit as the night goes on. But as far as springs that we're running, we run like a 250 right front, ultra high travel. The left front is 500 pound 10 inch. We've got our left rear is an 18 inch 100 pound spring. Right rear is a 275 12 inch. My 5th coil is a 350 10, and my 6th coil is a 350 4 inch. So for other guys that are out there that are running kind of a Mastersbilt car, this is something that Drew and I have worked over the last several years of trying to find a spring combination that helps work with our newer setup. Does this seem like a pretty decent starting point, or is there anything that you might say, hey, you might try to do it this way?
You guys have got a lot of spring in the right rear.
Okay.
Usually we don't ever run no stiffer than a 225. Now we might have 1, 2, or 3 spring rubbers in it, which brings the rate up on it. But when you run up there's stiffer spring or the softer spring, you don't have as much recoil as you do with the stiff spring.
Okay.
And guys, there's always 2 or 3 ways to skin a cat.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
If you're softer right rear, say you got 2 spring rubbers and 3 whatever, it's easy to pull that thing out there and lose 15 or 18 pounds and then just change the spring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the spring rubber we use is more foamy rather than the real hard rubber, so it's a little bit more forgiving. You know what I mean? It don't have that there recoil really as bad in it either.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? I've seen it. We've won races with 300 pound spring right rears, 350. You know what I mean? Everybody says, well, this is what needs to be. There's really no right answer, I don't think. It's how we manipulate it and get it to work.
Okay. I think that's a fair answer. I like that answer.
Who would think we would be at where we're at today with the springs and shock combination 12 years ago or whatever it might be? Well, there ain't no way. These guys, the first gas shock that was brought into the shop was an old one's, and me and Keith was presented what kind of price it was. Keith's first thing he said was, nobody will ever pay that for a shock. And I think back then it was $450 or $500.
Wow.
Now look at us.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So, you know what I mean? It's hard to say that won't work. I know that some of the big races that Eldor has been around one with 300 and a quarter pound right rear springs. The year that Gil drove our car, we about won the Dream, ended up running second in it. I think we was 350 right rear, 450 left rear. And that was a mistake practicing in North Vernon. Now this was shock and spring in front and back in the day.
Oh.
But that car, you know what I mean, the big thing about Eldor is you used to, and now you got to get turned. that helped that car rotate getting into the corner, and it still had some traction.
Interesting.
I mean, 350, 450. I can't remember what year that was, but I mean, John led up to right up to the last, and they had a caution. Bart Hartman lost his breather off his air filter canister, and he brought out a caution. Then Scott ended up getting it around him with the last few laps. But until then, John was a straightaway ahead. He was going to win the dream. But
Wow.
that's how racing can change.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said,
sure.
that the spring combination we come up with, we went and tested at North Vernon the week before, and you know, it bled on to some of our other customers, and it made them better the next 2 years too.
Interesting.
Very good.
So I like your comment about you can go with the lower rate spring. You know, if you're a limited team like me and Drew, we can't afford to buy 25 different springs to take to the track. But I like what you said about buying a little bit lower rate spring and stacking the spring rubbers in there and to get where you need to be. And then if you need to go lower, then you just pull them out.
Yeah.
And that seems like that would work really well because we are limited on people and time always at the track. That seems like that would be a really good approach for us. And as you said, there's no magic number. So, and a magic number, and as I always think about it, a magic number that might work for one driver probably isn't going to necessarily work for another driver. And that's a conversation Drew and I have a lot, is that we've got to figure out what we can make the car, the perfect balance between Drew and the car, so that way both are happy. The car's happy going around the track, Drew feels comfortable driving the car, and we understand that there's no secret answer to that, but that's what we're ultimately trying to work for. So maybe our right rear is something we need to look into and try that out. And just see, like you said, get a softer one, shove some spring rubbers in there, and then we can soften that guy up if we need to help it.
The biggest problem I have with a stiff spring like that is when the guy gets a car tailed out, a lot of times it's hard to get the traction back in it.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that thing ought to sail around the corner. If you keep her turned left, it ought to probably go around there pretty good. But if you do get a car out, usually a stiffer right rear spring like that hurts your traction. Historically, that's what I've always learned. Now, you know what I mean? One thing I can remember my brother always says, we can't change physics. You know what I mean? A lot of them try to make us believe they do, but you can't. It is what it is.
Yep. And I want to say thanks to Team Mastersbilt, Tater, and Team Race Know-How for coming out here to help us out today. If you guys want to check out the entire process of how we're going to move forward with our plan, be sure to go to raceknowhow.com and get yourself a membership there, sign up. They've got more than just what we're going to do today. Drew and I have been members to Race Know-How for almost 2 years now, and it is something that we constantly frequent back on a regular basis to catch up and try to get that little edge we need to get us where we want to go on the track. So check them out, raceknowhow.com, and appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment below, let us know what you think. Like, comment, smash that like button. Smash that like button.